Michael Sachs resigning. I'm joined by Treasury spokesperson Michael Sachs. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. What reasons, if any, did Michael Sachs give for resigning?
Well, those are reasons that you're going to have to speak to Michael Sachs about. What I'm here to do is to confirm that Michael has expressed an interest to move to other areas of government to continue serving the public in a different role. The question about his reasons is something that I think he's going to be in a better place to speak to. I don't want to add to the panic and the instability by putting my 2 cents into speculation about his reasons. I think when he is ready, he will speak to his reasons. Our priority as National Treasury is to communicate to the public that the institution is still strong. There are people there in the department that will continue the work of Michael Sachs.
I'm glad you said you don't want to add to the panic, because there is almost a sense of hysteria when it comes to allegations that there's an attempt to capture Treasury, that there is an attempt to destabilize Treasury and make way for certain people to have easier access and less checks and balances. So perhaps what I can ask you is, what are you doing to manage perceptions besides speaking to people, and how can we be sure that this kind of hysteria that is coming out and these persistent rumors that are coming out, that Treasury is being sidelined and its functions are being sidelined, don't continue?
See, the tricky part of that is that perceptions are fueled by the same people who will come back and ask me about those very perceptions. So I would say let's look at the actions of the minister since he's been appointed at National Treasury. What decisions has he taken and what have they communicated? So if there was an attempt, for instance, to capture National Treasury, the minister wouldn't have gone and appointed a Director General who comes from the system, who was a former chief of staff for his predecessor. So there was a clear attempt by the minister and the deputy minister to communicate continuity. So if the minister was trying to capture National Treasury, as it's put, why is he appointing a deputy director general who comes from the system? So what minister has communicated is the intention for continuity and stability to remain at National Treasury. All the decisions he has taken have communicated that. So what perception says is one thing, but what his actions speak to is another thing. I would encourage people to look at the minister's actions and not worry too much about rumors and perception. Also, it's important to note that, like me or anybody else who works in government, if at any particular time I come to a point in my life where I want to move on, we should be careful of not reducing a whole institution to just me, or to just Michael Sachs, or just to the former DG. As the former DG said when he left, that the judge of a good leader is to groom people under him. So the former DG groomed the current DG, and I have no doubt that Michael Sachs has groomed the 7 chief directors he has under him to continue his work.
I know you're saying that one person is obviously not the whole department. When the announcement or the rumors came out that Michael Sachs had resigned, also with the persistent rumors that President Jacob Zuma is going to push through free education, despite the report saying it's not affordable, we saw the rand falling by 1%. We also saw in the report 1% of our GDP should be spent on higher education. Can we afford this, and what are you going to do to reassure the markets and the jitters on that 1% drop?
Well, the rand is impacted by a number of variables at any particular time. It's very difficult for me to try predict the movements of the rand. But what I can say as National Treasury is that we are going to communicate to the market that the institution that is National Treasury, the priority of budgeting, is something that is squarely still the responsibility of National Treasury. Minister and the Director General are right now overseas speaking to investors, and their message is that the institution is strong, the priorities of budget consolidations are still in place, and the tough decisions that have to be taken by government is something that government is going to communicate. The issue of the Fees Commission is something that I can't speak to right now, because the President hasn't announced any intervention so far. I think the public is now engaging with the document, and the President, as he says in his statement, will make his stance quite clear, and then National Treasury will come out and give further meat to the President's stance.
Can you explain how the Ministry in the Presidency and Treasury are working together with the budgeting functions, because I think that's something that perhaps I don't understand now. Normally the budget function was solely Treasury's domain, but now the Presidency is coming in. How does that work? Who has a say on what? Just take me through how that works.
Well, Treasury has a say. Treasury has a say, and by the prescripts of the Constitution, the budgeting responsibility remains with National Treasury, and that's not going to change in the foreseeable future. What has been proposed from National Treasury and from also the Presidency was a committee that is able to override and make the tough decisions that need to be made. You remember in the past there was bigger groups that used to discuss issues of budget. And some of the challenges those groups faced was that every single person would argue for their territory. So when it came to making certain decisions about programs that need to be cut, every single minister would argue for their particular territory. So this committee gives us the opportunity to make overriding decisions from the Presidency that impact the whole of government, as opposed to some of the impasses we used to have in the past, because the budget committees were a lot bigger and there would always be impasses around certain programs. This streamlines it, and it affords us the ability to make the tough decisions where they need to be made. And for the most part, it's done that. I mean, even the decision for the Telkom sale was not something that was quite easy. It was something that came as a result of this presidential committee. The presidential committee is also going to announce further decisions that it wants to share with the public, and it will reflect my point that it can be quite an effective tool when it's used properly.
Michael Sachs, spokesperson for Treasury, joining us in studio there. It's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll take a look at Vodacom's big results after the break. Do stay with us.